This is the new 2017 Acura NSX. I borrowed it from the wonderful people here at DCH Montclair Acura because they have this one in possibly the coolest color, bright red, or Curva red, as Acura calls it. Now, this is a true halo car for Acura. It starts at $156,000. It has 573 horsepower and 476 pound-feet of torque. It does 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds, and it'll hit 191 miles an hour.
Only there's a problem. It simply isn't selling. Go on AutoTrader right now and you'll find 190 different new 2017 NSX models listed for sale at dealerships across the country. You know how many new Ferrari models are listed on AutoTrader? Zero. None. You have to be on a waiting list to buy a new Ferrari. Needless to say, there's no waiting list required to buy an NSX.
So why is that? I've taken this car from DCH Montclair Acura for the day so that I can check it out and really get a feel for it. First, I'm going to show you all of its quirks and cool features, and then I'm going to take it out on the road and tell you how Acura's supercar drives. And visit autotrader.com/oversteer for more of my thoughts on this car and for an article about a few cool old school NSXs I found for sale on AutoTrader.
But first, a little history lesson. The original NSX debuted in 1990, and it lasted through 2005, praised for its pure driving experience and Japanese reliability compared to Italian exotics. Acura has been insisting they'd build a new NSX repeatedly, pretty much ever since 2005, or they'd debut some new NSX concept car, there was some race car that was supposed to be the next NSX, but it took them 12 years to roll out this one. By then, expectations were really high. So, does it live up to them? Let's start with those quirks and features.
We'll start before you even get in the car with one of my favorite features. You press the unlock button on the key fob, and the door handles pop out. Tell me that's not cool. And press the lock button, and they go right back in. But you don't even really have to push the button. Right now, I'm going to walk right up to the car, not touching anything, and ta-da! Door handle opens right up. That's pretty cool. And once you pull on those cool door handles and you get inside, you notice quite a few interesting quirks and features, like, for example, the volume slider. It's not just a boring knob like it is on your car. Instead, you slide your hand up and down to adjust the stereo volume. But that's not the coolest thing in the interior. In my opinion, the coolest thing in the interior is the gauge cluster. Check this out.
There's a little dial in the center control stack that changes the NSX's drive modes. Twist it to put the NSX into sport mode and the gauge cluster changes, making the gauges and the tachometer more detailed. Turn it again for Sport Plus and the tachometer completely rotates. The whole thing turns from blue to red, and you get an engine temperature gauge that shows up in the top left. Hold down the dial to confirm you want track mode, and the performance indicators in the middle of the gauge go to their extreme highest settings, and traction control turns off.
In addition to all those modes, the NSX also has a really cool quiet mode that shuts off part of the exhaust note so that you can go sneak out with your NSX late at night and drive away down some back roads. I've never seen any other supercar with that. Another cool thing about the NSX, because of its hybrid powertrain, it can shut the engine off when it doesn't need it to be running. For example, right now, the engine just went off, but all the accessories remain on because it's in EV mode. There's not a lot of cars at this price point that can do that. The other cool thing about it gets 21 miles per gallon city and 22 miles per gallon highway because of that hybrid powertrain. Most people who buy this car aren't going to care about that, but that's really impressive for a car at this performance level. Another cool interior feature of this car is the gear selector. Now, it's not different from what you'll find in a lot of modern Acura models, but it's probably a lot different from what you'll find in your normal car.
Here's how it works. When you get inside, there are little lights around P for park. You want reverse, you push this little button backwards, then the lights appear around R. It's kind of idiot-proof. For neutral, push N and the lights appear around N. And then for drive, just push D/M and push the second time for manual mode. If you want to get back into park, just push P again.
Now, having the gear selector here has two primary benefits. Number one is it frees up some space in the middle of the cabin. There's some buttons there instead of a giant lever rising up out of the center. Also, you'll never screw up and put the car in the wrong gear because you actually pushed a button to get it into that gear. For some more quirks, we move around to the back. For example, you see this giant spoiler back here. This is a carbon fiber spoiler, goes across the entire back end of the car. It's a factory option, but you might not realize this spoiler is actually broken into three pieces. Open up the trunk, and the spoiler part on the trunk stays in the trunk, and these two bits stay over here. Now, another cool thing back here is how the lights work. When the headlights go on and thus the taillights go on, it forms this cool band of lights around the entire rear of the car. Personally, I prefer the brake lights, which make these little arcs around each end. But the best part is the turn signals. Look at those things. They're just little tiny strips of lights that tell you what direction the NSX is gonna go. But even cooler are the lights up front. I love those headlights. Look at them, they're just mean, they're angry, they're aggressive. They give this car a really cool look. But better than that, I think, are the turn signals. Look at those, they look different than every other Acura on the road. Another cool thing about the NSX is the stuff you get when you buy it. For starters, you get a little model and another larger model in the exact spec and colors and equipment of your NSX.
You also get this black NSX folder, which contains a complete build sheet of your car detailing all of the options on your particular NSX. And it also includes a cool drawing of the car done by the NSX's designer. Also cool, each NSX is individually numbered, so you know where you stand among other NSX owners.
Of course, like all cars, the NSX has a few notable drawbacks, but even those are interesting.
For example, walk up to the NSX's door and you'll notice a rather conspicuous exterior keyhole, sort of unfortunate given the car's otherwise modern lines. The weird part is no other Acuras have an exterior keyhole. Here's an MDX, no keyhole, and here's a TLX, also no keyhole. It's also worth noting that there's no storage at all in front, just a lot of stuff you shouldn't touch unless you know what you're doing.
But the NSX isn't all about cool quirks and features that make you go, wow. One of the things I like most about this car is that, true to the original one and true to the idea of buying a Japanese performance car, this thing is surprisingly practical. Let me show you what I mean.
In the glove box, you will find this, a microfiber cloth, and not just any microfiber cloth, an Acura microfiber cloth to be used with the radio display. Meanwhile, in the trunk, you will find this, a funnel for fuel in case you run out. And not just any funnel, this one has a Honda logo on it.
I promise you, 30 years from now, when these things are selling for $1 million at the Pebble Beach RM car auction, if your NSX doesn't have its little microfiber towel and its little Honda funnel, you won't meet your reserve.
You also won't meet your reserve if you don't have your original Acura owner's manual. Acura is so obsessed with practicality that it comes inside a Ziploc bag. And speaking of practicality, it's such a priority for Acura that the NSX is probably the only supercar in the world with 3 trunk releases. There's one on the key fob, one on the driver's door, and there's one on the trunk itself.
And regardless of which way you release the trunk, you'll notice something interesting about it when you get in it. I review a lot of exotic cars with a lot of trunks, and usually they're nowhere near big enough for a set of golf clubs, but you can get one in the new NSX. Yes, you have to pull out your drivers and put them in separately, but they all fit in the trunk of this car. Another practical feature of this car, you'll notice that when you look around this interior, there aren't any cup holders anywhere. Acura, in their practical mindset, has thought of that. Open up the glove box and you pull out, look at this, cup holders. There's a little latch right here, you stick them, and now you can put your drink in your NSX.
One final bit of practicality, everything in this car is simple and functional. The turn signal stalk is just a turn signal stalk. The wiper stalk is just a wiper stalk. The door locks are exactly as you'd expect, and the same goes for the power window and mirror controls. They don't have any strange gimmicks or confusing operations, and they're mostly borrowed from other Acura models.
Now, I know I've made fun in the past of some cars for sharing their switches and buttons with lesser vehicles, like the Maserati Ghibli, for example, but it's important to keep in mind the purpose here. The Ghibli is intended to be an Italian exotic. It's supposed to give you a more beautiful feel every time you get in, every time you open the door compared to German rivals, and using Dodge switchgear doesn't really do that. But the purpose of this car is and always has been to offer a more practical, more reliable, and less expensive alternative to the Italian exotics. It may not have the cool switchgear and buttons and features, but it's also a lot less expensive. Those things help keep costs down. And if you don't want to go crazy and spend $1 zillion on a Ferrari that you're not really sure will last more than a few years, that was the purpose of the old NSX. And these buttons and switches prove that it's still kind of the purpose of the new one. So, the new NSX is loaded with cool features, including some you may not have known about. Now, it's time to take it out on the road. All right, we're in Sport Plus, it's so fast. So this is like a dual clutch with a torque converter. The gear changes are monstrously quick, just like everything else with a dual clutch. I mean, nothing is faster than anything else anymore. It used to be that some cars had a really fast transmission, some didn't. Now everything's just really fast. So the first thing you think you get in this car and we're driving on a normal street here, you're just we're good. Like, we're just chilling and you can hang out, which is, I think, one of the strong suits of this car. Visibility is great behind me. I can see everything. We had it idling. It's incredibly hot today. We had it idling for like an hour shooting the video, and we don't have to worry that it's going to shut off or send some fault. My Aston Martin used to send a fault when it was idling for more than 10 minutes. There's none of that stuff. With this car, you can just be sure. And that's kind of the benefit, one of the benefits of getting like an exotic car from Acura. This whole just a V6 thing is going to have to come to an end here pretty soon, because Acura's getting almost 600 horsepower out of a V6. At that point, who really cares what engine's in the thing? It does 0 to 60 in 2.9. It could be a 4-cylinder. If you're doing 0 to 60 in 2.9, I don't care. So we're driving down this quiet neighborhood road, and it's just normal. One of the other benefits of this car, I've always felt, I've driven it before, is that the ride quality is better than virtually any exotic car on the market. But see, this road sucks, and it feels reasonably good, and I'm in Sport Plus. Which is nice. I mean, this is the car for it's just like the original one. It's the car for the person who doesn't want to deal with all the BS. There are benefits to the BS. Having the cool, flashy Italian exotic car, that's super cool. There's no doubt about that. But there are a lot of people who've done that and who are like, I don't want to go down that road anymore. The controls are more obvious in this car. They're more obviously located. The 488 has its lock and unlock button next to the dome lights. Makes no sense. This car is just, everything is just a lot simpler, a lot more ergonomic. The thing that people, I think, forget about this car, anybody who badmouths this car, and there has been some negative reviews, people forget is the performance is there. I think the biggest problem Acura had was just the lead time. You tell people for 10 years you're going to come out with this car, there's no way to meet their expectations. None. Zero. It's just not going to happen. This car is as good, and the numbers say it, as any other modern exotic. But none of the other modern exotics, we waited 12 years. Is this the year they're going to do it? You know what it's like, honestly? It's like a 911 Turbo. It's the supercar for people who kind of want to, it's not more relaxed by any means, because you drop a couple of gears and your neck can snap. But it's not, and that's also true of the 911 Turbo, but it's the car that's you know, if you don't want to deal with it, but you happen to drive it to the office that day, you can drive home in quiet mode and just chill. Now we're in EV mode. The car is completely, you can't hear a thing. This is so cool. It's interesting, when you're in quiet mode, you don't hear the noise anymore, but I gotta say, that turbo noise you do hear instead, and it's awesome. Oh, you can hear the whistle and the blow-off valve actually occurring each time you press the gas. It's like a modded like Civic or something. It's so cool. Yeah, the sound, you know, the sound's just, it's never going to be a V8 or a V12. Then that's just a reality of the car. If you were paying $280, you'd be pissed about that. Oh, it's so quick. It is so quick, and the transmission is so fast and smooth. Oh, it just holds its line so well. My God. Boy, it is so planted around the corners. Wow, wow. So I had to record a decreases radius. I didn't realize. The car's like, yeah, whatever, no big deal. The steering is what I would call sports car. It's not like supercar exotic, like it'll do anything and grip everywhere, but it's so predictable and it's just so nice. You put it where you want it to go and it goes there, and it's perfectly weighted. And the car, of course, has absolutely no body roll. It goes exactly where you'd expect. The very most precise things, the very hardest corners and stuff, you can tell it's a little off the very top end cars, the 48 and stuff, but you'd expect that. Given that it's roughly, you know, 2/3 of the price or 3/5 of the price. But Acura must have known, if the people wanted the really crazy Huracan experience, they would spend the money. And so you have the ability to sort of drive this every day. I don't think this car performs as well in terms of absolute at the limit road holding, that sort of thing, as Huracan stuff, but I think it's immensely more drivable. So the new NSX is pretty cool. It's amazing to drive, just like its predecessor. It offers a Japanese take on an exotic car, just like its predecessor. It has a V6 engine, mid-mounted, with a little less power than all the Italian exotics, just like its predecessor. And while its $156,000 base price may seem a little steep, keep in mind that the Lamborghini Huracan now starts at $200,000. The Ferrari 488 starts at $250,000, and the McLaren 650S is $270,000. And that makes the NSX, relative to those cars, kind of a bargain, just like its predecessor. So why isn't it selling? The answer actually is right here, Acura.
You see, when Audi released the R8 in 2008, it was intended to have the same effect as the NSX, a halo car that brings enthusiasts to the brand. And it had that effect because Audi also rolled out other enthusiast-focused cars at the same time. The A5 and S5, a sportier new A4, and S6 with the V10 from a Lamborghini. Audi was cool and the R8 made it super cool. But Acura, say you like the NSX, but you can't afford it. What other Acura are you going to get? A TLX in Fathom Blue Pearl? The Acura lineup is suspiciously devoid of performance cars, except for the one that costs $156,000.
And yet my response to that is, so what? Yeah, the NSX is a little bit of a weird car for Acura, but so was the original one. And over time, its desirability and its values have shot up. No, this is not the supercar for the person who wants the Ferrari horse or the Lamborghini Bull on the front. But if you want a car with an amazing driving experience and some neat quirks and cool features and a really striking appearance, and you want to save a little money, at least put this on your shopping list.